Good afternoon, everybody. I hope everyone is doing outstanding today. This is the Roaming Prepper channel. I want to thank you all for joining me today. For those of you who are new to my channel over the last few weeks, I want to thank you for joining me. I want to thank all the other creators and channels that have shouted me out. And for those of you who have not been to a situation report before, it's rather straightforward. I do this once a week, or I try to anyway. It is a compilation of government releases, military releases, corporate releases, and media. Everything is public. I try where I can find the source to give the source, so you can do some reading on your own. And sometimes I cannot find the source, so it is what it is at that point. But I do try to at least point you in the right direction if you want to read further into any of the subjects. It covers the whole world, starts by regions in alphabetical order, starting with Africa, and then it continues around the globe till we wind up in the Western Hemisphere. And my dogs are fighting again, because apparently the minute I record a video, they decide it's time for battle. Anyway. Starting Africa, Congo, and we've been talking about the Congo quite a bit. Congo rebels leave strategic town ahead of planned Doha talks. Rwandan-backed M23 rebels in the Eastern Democratic Republic of the Congo have withdrawn from the strategic town of Walikale, describing the move as a goodwill gesture ahead of planned peace talks. Congo has a lot of resources, especially rare earth minerals, diamonds, gold, all sorts of good stuff. And they have been having a lot of issues with what's basically a quasi-civil war going on. So I guess that's a good thing. Again, if you are a traveling professional, especially if you work in remote locations like I have had to at times, always good to kind of get a feel for different regions. Next on the list for Africa, South Sudan. Uganda president holds talks with South Sudanese leaders to try to avoid a civil war. Uganda's President Yoweri Museveni, may not have said that right, was expected to meet South Sudanese officials on the second day of his trip to the capital, Juba, as the UN has expressed concern of a renewed civil war after the main opposition leader was placed under house arrest. Now, these kind of things may not affect us in the West directly, but they do have relevance in the event you are traveling in that area. Also, certain countries do export goods that we use here, so it's important for us to understand what instabilities overseas could somehow affect us here domestically. It's also good to get a pulse of the world in a lot of ways. Sometimes smaller countries are a precursor or a canary in the cave, so to say, to something that'll happen to the larger economies. So it's always good to pay attention. Moving to the next area, East Asia and Pacific, Singapore, moderate and severe trauma injury cases up 22% in Singapore from 21 to 23. These injuries were sustained in incidents like falls and road accidents, while about 1 in 10 children suffered injuries due to drowning. That's really interesting, actually. I hadn't read this before I came online. Moderate to severe trauma injury cases up 22% since the end of COVID. I might have to dig into that a little more. That's really interesting. Anyway, and it could also be a thing where people were locked down for a couple of years and then they forgot how to behave out in the real world. I don't know. South Korea, Constitutional Court upholds Yoon's impeachment, removes him from office. This is an interesting one. The Constitutional Court unanimously upheld the impeachment of President Yoon Suk-yeol on Friday, removing him from office over his short-lived imposition of martial law in December. He imposed martial law because he said communists had infiltrated the government and were trying to take it over, and now he's been removed from office. So that's interesting. That's from Yonhap News Agency. I'm sorry, I didn't give references. The two Africa stories were from Reuters and Associated Press, and the Singapore story was from Channel News Asia. My apologies for that. Moving on to Europe. Italy, murders of 2 female students prompt calls for a cultural rebellion in Italy. This is from The Guardian. The murders sparked protests in Messina, Rome, and other Italian cities, including Bologna, on Wednesday night. Further events are planned. I had not heard about the murders of these two folks, but clearly, let me see if Let me see if we can open this and dig a little more into that, because that's kind of interesting. There have been a lot of murders in the various Western countries. Here we go. That's too bad. Here, these are the two young ladies. This is from The Guardian. Murders of two female students prompt calls for cultural rebellion. Amid outrage and protests over the murders of two females found within 48 hours of each other, bringing the number of femicides in the country since the start of the year to 11. Sarah Campanella, 22-year-old biomedical student, was stabbed at a bus stop in the Sicilian city of Messina and died en route to the hospital. Stefano Argentino, a fellow student in the University of Messina, was later arrested for that assault. And then in a separate incident, body of 22-year-old Liara Sula, a statistics student in Sapienza University, was found in a suitcase, oh, poor baby, in a forested area outside the Italian capital of Rome. Her former boyfriend, Mark Sampson, was Sampson does not sound Italian. He might be a Brit or an American. The murder sparked protests. This is something we probably don't talk about enough, but college students, Lake and Riley, was killed by the illegals. In this case, it sounds like one was a British expat and the other one was another Italian. We need to make a point of telling all our children, male and female, when they go to college, it's not like it was 20, 30 years ago. It's a very different environment now. People stalk each other. They can do research on you using your Facebook, your Instagram. They can see who you hang out with, where you've been. The threat matrix has changed. And granted, now in my age, you can look at my Facebook. I really don't care. I mean, I'll probably just piss you off, but because I know I do piss people off, but they need to be cognizant of the threats that could occur to them. This is really tragic. Slovakia, moving on, still in Europe, Slovakia, thousands of Slovaks protest against Russian-style law targeting non-governmental organizations. This is from Euronews. Citizens across Slovakia have been protesting for months over Prime Minister Robert Fico's shift towards Russia and away from the EU. We're going to start seeing a lot of those splits in the EU as the Russia, Ukraine, NATO, US situation evolves. So interesting to look at. United Kingdom, UK, and that was from Euronews. United Kingdom, UK looks to shore up safety of undersea pipelines amid Russia threats. This is from Politico. The UK is reviewing how it defends key infrastructure like undersea gas pipelines and data cables amid growing fears of sabotage by Vladimir Putin's Russia. Keep in mind, I did a video on whether we were witnessing precursor events shortly after the Ukrainian war broke out. There were about 11 fires at that time, fires, derailments. Almost every one of them were either metal or military manufacturing in Europe, not here in the States. We, at the same time, were watching food processing plants, chicken, beef, getting burned down, a bunch of derailments, including the Ohio one. I went back to look at those same stats again. There now have been over 53, the majority of which have been blamed on unknown or foreign agents by the UK and the EU. So we're almost watching that fifth generation warfare going on where they don't quite know what it is, but they know it wasn't an accident, but it doesn't look like just some plain old arson. To be fair, Russia had oil transfer units blow up. They've had their pipeline get destroyed, which was not technically a simple feat to do. That was a very difficult thing to do. We may be witnessing a new evolution, or we're part of a new evolution of warfare, where things just suddenly catch fire or explode. So this is important. Maintain your situational awareness when you're out and about. And that was from Politico, this last one. Moving Middle East, North Africa, Israeli army announces new ground offensive east of Gaza City. The Israeli army announced it has launched a new ground offensive east of Gaza City on Friday to expand the security zone that it established inside the Palestinian territory. That's going to continue to be a problem. Israel/Syria. This one is from Arab News as well. Both of these from Arab News. At least 9 people killed in southwestern Syria following countrywide Israeli strikes overnight. Israel is hitting both the threats to the north and to the south very severely. And, we're witnessing this right now. I don't know what's going to come of that other than a lot of instability. I know most of these were tied in some way, shape, or form to Iran, so there may be a larger campaign going on here. I'm sure those of you paying attention would be prone to agree with me. It's certainly not random what's going on. Moving on, South and Central Asia, new region. India, fugitive terrorists spotted in Udhampur, search launched. This is from the Times of India. Security forces launched a manhunt Thursday using drones and military dogs in J&K's Udhampur district after reports that armed men were spotted near the border with Kathua district. I don't know what Kathua district is. India is still struggling with some stuff. Western Hemisphere, now moving to the West. It wasn't very much in South and Central Asia. Western Hemisphere. Reaction to tariffs in Latin America. This is from America's Quarterly. Worth noting are the new tariffs levied on China, 34%, Taiwan, 32%, Japan, 24%, and the EU, 20%. The baseline 10% tariff was applied to many Latin American and Caribbean countries, with higher levies for Guyana, Nicaragua, and Venezuela. So the countries, everyone's reacting. I know some countries have already called and they're making deals. I think this is more a political leverage game, but it'll be interesting to see where it goes. The stock market freaked out, but the stock market normally does. It does not like instability or unknowns. And even if the unknown isn't necessarily a negative, if they don't know what it is, it's going to tank the market. So we'll see where that goes. Argentina Senate rejects Milei nominees to top court, from Reuters. Argentine Senate rejected 2 Supreme Court justice nominees proposed by President Javier Milei in a setback for the libertarian leader who accused lawmakers of politicizing the vote. Canada, Liberal Party's polling surge in Canada's largest ever, and it's The Economist, they put The Economist. By any standard, the polling surge that Canada's Liberals are enjoying is extraordinary. Among 31 rich parliamentary or semi-presidential democracies over the past decade, only one party has had a larger spike in support over 100 days than the Liberal Party, and they go on to talk. Now, I don't know if their Liberal Party is the same as us. Maybe. I'm going to go look and see real quick. And maybe not. It's the largest move in the country's polling history, but wild oscillations in voting intentions are standard for Canada. So I guess this is not an atypical thing. Moving on to South America, Costa Rica. Costa Rica's Caso Fenix, the good, the bad, and the ugly about money laundering, Insight Crime article. A recent multi-million-dollar money laundering investigation in Costa Rica illustrates how the government is attacking the country's growing drug-related violence by going after the profits. And all of South America is battling this right now. And last but not least, Haiti. Haiti announces new measures to fight gangs after thousands of protesters demand security. Associated Press. The leader of Haiti's Transitional Presidential Council tried to allay surging alarm among Haitians over rampant gang violence by acknowledging Thursday that the country has become hell for everyone and promising new measures to stop the bloodshed. Whenever a government falls, inevitably you will have gangs, militias, and other stuff form. This is repeated throughout history. Going back to the Greek and the Phoenicians, the Persians, the Romans. We all like to talk about the Romans, but the Greeks, Phoenicians, the Trojans, all these ancient city-states, when they fell, they broke apart. Even during the the Dark Ages, in Europe, you had barons and landowners and lords and fiefdoms fighting one another, and multiple kings, even within the same country. So very interesting. Other than that, ladies and gentlemen, that kind of wraps up this week's situation report. I would like to note also some things I've mentioned. South Korea, March wildfires in the Republic of Korea. There is a publication out for that. And Guyana and Venezuela have rising tensions over an oil-rich territory that is between them, and it's technically inside Guyana's economic zone. So we'll see how that pans out. And for those of you who are traveling, consular warnings. This is from the State Department. Denmark, there will be a demonstration the week of April 4th, doesn't specify when. There'll be multiple demonstrations in Denmark the next couple of weeks. Hungary, there will be demonstrations there as well through the month of April, and Slovakia. And ladies and gentlemen, that is it for this one. By all means, if you want to add or you have heard anything about any of these stories, feel free to put it in the comments below the video. Other than that, that wraps up this situation report for this week. Ladies and gentlemen, be good, be safe out there, take care of each other, be smart with your money, time, and energy, because those are important resources. Protect your health, protect your peace, and I will see all of you on my next video. Sorry about that. You guys be good. Take care of yourselves.